In 1982, Universal accused Nintendo of copying King Kong with a game called Donkey Kong. But at that very same moment, Universal had licensed another electronic King Kong game of its own. Its maker had seen Donkey Kong in Japan and set out to build something just like it. One product, Universal called Theft. The other it planned to profit from. So who was really copying whom? And who owned this gorilla at all? On April 28th, Universal sent Nintendo and its partner Coleco the same telex. The studio declared itself the sole owner of nearly every right to King Kong and Kong, demanded that all Donkey Kong sales stop, that the profits be handed over, and that the remaining inventory be destroyed. It gave them 48 hours to settle. Universal wanted the game pulled off the market before it had shown a single document proving those exclusive rights existed. 2 years earlier, Nintendo of America was itself a company with a very uncertain future. Its warehouse was full of unsold radar scope arcade machines that somehow had to be turned into something Americans would drop quarters into. The first version of the new game was built around Popeye, Bluto, and Olive Oyl. Then those characters were swapped for a carpenter named Mario, a girl, and a comical ape. Donkey Kong wasn't born as a franchise. It was born as a rescue operation. The name was chosen casually. The court record says so. Kong was understood to mean a gorilla, and donkey was pulled from a dictionary as a word meaning stupid or goofy. But Universal had one fact that stung Nintendo. Shigeru Miyamoto had seen the King Kong films, and during development he actually called his ape King Kong. So the resemblance was no accident. The trouble is, a similar idea and an infringed right are not the same thing. The game launched in the United States in July 1981. By October, it was selling around 4,000 machines a month, and by the spring of '82, only Pac-Man beat it. By the time of the appeal, Nintendo had earned more than $180 million from about 60,000 machines in the US and Canada, and millions more from licensing. The word Kong no longer just meant an ape, it meant a market. And here the timeline turns the accusation on its head. In the summer of 1981, the president of Tiger Electronics saw Donkey Kong in Tokyo and decided Tiger should make a game just like it. That August, he asked Universal for a King Kong license and asked for it, in his words, as speedily as possible. In September, the studio granted him an exclusive one, so the future plaintiff had waved a potential copy onto the market before it ever accused the original. A trademark search showed Universal dozens of other people's registrations of King Kong and names like it. In early 1982, Universal staff played Donkey Kong and suspected Tiger had taken a license only to clone Nintendo's hit. And according to testimony the judge later found credible, Universal's own lawyers reviewed their rights and concluded they might have nothing worth licensing at all. The licensing program was about to be shut down. On April 8th, an in-house lawyer reminded management that the screen image of the ape from the 1933 film belonged to RKO, so any Kong of Universal's own had to be original. Then studio president Sid Sheinberg saw a note about Donkey Kong's success. Vice President Robert Haddle took some children to play it, decided it looked similar, and reported back. No written analysis of the rights was ever produced. What was produced was a willingness to threaten a lawsuit. On April 27th, Universal was discussing a possible investment in joint projects with Coleco. Coleco showed off the killer app for its new ColecoVision console, a home version of Donkey Kong. Sheinberg replied that Universal owned King Kong and put the rest of the business talk on hold until the matter was settled. The next day, the telex went out. For Coleco, it was a perfect trap. The product was finished, the orders were in, the launch was close, and a single lawsuit could wreck all of it. On May 5th, Coleco agreed to pay Universal 3% of its Donkey Kong revenue in exchange for a promise not to sue. The very next day, it brought Nintendo to a joint meeting and never mentioned that it had already surrendered. Nintendo's Howard Lincoln asked Universal to show its chain of title to King Kong. He was told the question was open and shut and promised the documents. They never came. Nintendo didn't yet know it was sitting at that table alone. On May 8th, Universal terminated Tiger's license. In the letter, the studio said it plainly. Tiger's playfield and concept were substantially similar to the popular Donkey Kong, owned by another company. On May 14th, Haddle put it to Lincoln even more bluntly. The Tiger game was a knockoff, a clone that infringed Nintendo's copyright. You'd think that would end it, that Universal would leave Nintendo alone. But this story runs in exactly the opposite direction. On May 21st, Scheinberg met with Nintendo again. He said Universal loved to litigate, that its legal department even turned a profit. And on the way out, he advised Nintendo to start saving its money for lawyers. Right after that meeting, Universal made two decisions: to sue Nintendo and to take back Tiger's license. The accused game and the admitted clones suddenly stopped contradicting each other. One became a target, the other became an asset. Tiger made three changes. It put a fireman's helmet on its hero. It swapped the barrels for bombs. It flattened the slanted platforms into level floors. Haddle and Tiger's Head tried the new version at a Sears store. Haddle approved it without comparing it to Donkey Kong again. Then the exclusive license was quietly turned into a non-exclusive one, so it would no longer get in the way of Universal's deals with other companies. The copy wasn't destroyed. It was cosmetically disguised and legally repackaged. On June 6th, Universal announced MCA Video Games. The game business, management said, looked like the biggest thing going. On June 29th, it filed suit against the Nintendo, claiming rights even to the visual image of King Kong. Inside the company, meanwhile, artists were being warned not to copy the apes from the RKO and De Laurentiis films. Two versions of reality. For the court, Universal owned Kong. For its own designers, it had to tiptoe around someone else's rights. Through the fall and winter, Universal pressed Nintendo's partners for deals. And on January 3, 1983, having obtained their list through court discovery, it sent them all a demand. Stop selling Donkey Kong or make a deal with us. 6 licensees halted production and withheld the royalties they owed Nintendo. But Milton Bradley and Ralston Purina refused. Universal threatened them harder and still never sued. Later, the court would single out that strange selectiveness. Coleco, Atari, and the cartoon studio Ruby Spears paid Universal a combined $4,765,371. But they were not buying Donkey Kong from Universal. They were buying peace, Universal's promise not to sue them. The studio didn't control the quality of their products, and the boxes still carried Nintendo's name. These weren't ordinary character licenses. They were the price of making a legal risk go away. Nintendo hired John Kirby, a lawyer who, back in the 1960s, had gathered the evidence that proved Black Americans were being systematically denied the vote. Kirby knew how to find not a clever line, but the one document that collapses the whole structure. So the defense didn't stop at whether two gorillas looked alike. It asked a more dangerous question. Exactly what did Universal claim as its trademark? Who had it come from? And could Universal show an unbroken chain of ownership? Back in 1975, Universal itself had fought for the right to make a new King Kong and had argued the original story was in the public domain. A federal court accepted that argument, though later settlements and partial reversals muddied the picture. On top of that, Universal had paid the heir of Kong's creator $200,000 for part of his rights. So the old file was no magic button marked Nintendo wins. It raised a harder question. Which specific trademark had Universal actually acquired? Universal still had a case an ordinary viewer could follow. The names are close. In both stories, a giant ape holds a woman up high while a man tries to save her. Miyamoto had seen the films, and 18% of 150 surveyed owners and managers of arcades, bowling alleys, and pizza parlors believed Donkey Kong was authorized by the makers of the King Kong movies. Imagine the decision is yours. Is 18% confusion enough to pull a game off the shelves? Give me your ruling in the comments. Here's what the court actually found. Judge Robert Sweet opened his decision with a line. This is a dispute over two gorillas, but Universal's old case did not become an automatic bar against changing its story. The court went deeper. RKO owned one screen image of Kong, De Laurentiis another, and Universal claimed some third version it couldn't even clearly describe. A gorilla that vague pointed no customer to a single source, and so the trademark Universal needed, one with real distinctiveness, had never existed. The appeals court then took apart Universal's centerpiece survey. It had questioned people who'd already bought or rented the machines, not potential buyers. Its question openly hinted at a connection to films whose images Universal did not even own. And when people were asked, without prompting, who made Donkey Kong, not one named Universal. The court also contrasted the farcical, childlike, and non-sexual Donkey Kong with the ferocious movie monster. In 1984, the dismissal held. On an ordinary case, the credits would roll here. But Nintendo demanded an answer for the Tiger game and the pressure on its licensees. The court found that Tiger had built its game while watching Donkey Kong and had programmed a similar kind of play. Universal knew about the resemblance, controlled the license, and took a profit. So the company that had come to court as King Kong's protector turned out to be liable for infringing Nintendo's copyright itself. And those letters to the partners became a separate claim: interference with Nintendo's contracts. And here the harsh words are no longer our dramatization. They're the court's own findings. Universal knew it did not hold the exclusive trademark rights it claimed, yet launched a systematic campaign to coerce Nintendo's partners. The appeals court called the conduct an abuse of the judicial process and wrote that the studio had acted on a mistaken belief that it could use the courts to turn a profit. That line about the profitable legal department stopped being a boast at a lunch meeting. It became the explanation for the whole scheme. The confirmed payments to Nintendo, lost royalties, the cost of the defense, punitive damages, Universal's profit from Tiger, and fees on the copyright claim came to roughly $1.6 million. But that $4.76 million? Nintendo never got it in this case. The court explained that money had been paid to Universal by Coleco, Atari, and Ruby Spears, so they were the ones who could try to get it back. Coleco filed its own suit. A legal defeat did not mean a total financial one. Nintendo gave John Kirby a sailboat and named it Donkey Kong. And decades later, the story came full circle. In 2015, Nintendo and Universal Parks announced a partnership. Nintendo licenses its intellectual property, and the two build theme park attractions together. So today, Universal doesn't sell the rights to Donkey Kong, and it doesn't sell a ticket to someone else's character. It sells entry to its own park, where it uses those characters by agreement with Nintendo. No one ever bought Nintendo. The old adversary became a licensee and a partner. Subscribe, because here, the ending begins right where the lawsuit usually stops.